Howdy folks, and welcome back to the Pine Grove Briar, a podcast where the smoke curls slow, where history gets a little smoky, a little strange, and a whole lot of Western. I'm your host, and I'm your single-serving saddle partner on this dusty trail through time. Today's episode rides into the life of a man who could track a bobcat barefoot and bring back justice in a sack, literally. We're talking about the one and only Tom Tobin. Scout, soldier, trapper, and head-hauling bounty hunter. You may not find his name in most textbooks, but make no mistake, Tom Tobin was the kind of man the Wild West wrote ballads about. The kind they tell stories of in low voices around fires, with one eye on the tree line. Before we get into today's story, I want to say thanks to our friends at the Burriar Tobacconist, found in the Mountain Mall on Level D in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, for fine leaf, fine gear, and the kind of shop that still smells like history. Go check out the Burriar Tobacconist. So who was Tom Tobin? He was born in 1823, either in Missouri or maybe even South Carolina, depending on which story you believe. Let's be honest. And by the way, I'm burning Frank's blend again today. You guys know I love that blend. Let's be honest about these guys back in the 1800s. They all came with foggy paperwork. What we do know, though, he was Irish American. And he made his way west as a young man, like a lot of others, chasing fur, freedom, or some of them were just running from something. By his early 20s, Tom was already working as a scout and trapper in what's now Colorado, New Mexico. He was tight with Kit Carson, and yes, that Kit Carson, and even served under him in the Mexican-American War. Now, serving under Kit Carson back then was kind of like interning with Indiana Jones if Indy had less regard for international law. Tobin wasn't just another hired gun or mountain man, though. He fluently spoke Spanish and had strong ties with local communities and tribes. He was a cultural go-between, which made him invaluable in places where most white men wouldn't last a day without getting shot, robbed, or mistaken for a meal. Tobin's military career reads like a list of bar fights that escalated into campaigns. He fought in the Mexican-American War and then again during the Civil War. But more often, he was employed as a civilian scout. Let me tell you, the Army back then loved using guys like Tobin. They could fight, ride, and navigate terrain so wild it didn't even have names yet. But they didn't come with pesky things like rules of engagement. Tom did things his own way. Speaking of doing things their own way, check out Lee's Bait and Tackle on top of the 4-lane in the Northtown Plaza in Oneida, Tennessee. They make custom plastics so that you can do things your own way. During the Civil War, Tobin helped track down criminals of war. The man could follow footprints over granite. He had that uncanny mountain man sense, half instinct, half hard-earned skill. That let him disappear and reappear on the trail like smoke in the wind. And he was quiet, like we're talking kill you in your sleep kind of quiet. His presence didn't make noise. It made enemies nervous. But let's talk about the big one. The story that really cements his legend. Before we get into that, though, go check out our friends at Sewell's Woodworks on Etsy. They've got a variety of items from 3D printed products to woodwork products. Go check them out, Sewell's Woodworks on Etsy. All right, so let's set the stage. It's the early 1860s in Colorado. The Civil War's raging, and While most of the attention is on Gettysburg and Appomattox, out west there's another war brewing. One driven by revenge, religion, and a whole lot of blood. Enter Felipe and Vivian Espinosa. These brothers weren't just criminals. They were serial killers with a vendetta against the United States. Some sources say they killed over 32 people. How do you kill over 32 people? Like 32 and a half? 32 and 3/4? Mostly settlers and Anglo-Americans. The murders were brutal, and the Espinosas left behind threatening letters signed with bloody crosses. Local law enforcement couldn't catch them. The military couldn't find them. So what do? They called Tom Tobin. Tobin tracks them through the Rockies. Sleeping rough, eating who knows what, and staying just one shadow behind them. And then one day, he catches them. How exactly the ambush went down is kind of fuzzy. But here's the part that made history. He cut off their heads. Yep. Put them in a sack, rode back to Fort Garland, dropped them right there in front of the commander. You want proof? There it is, folks. 2 heads and 1 legend. And didn't even ask for a medal. So, what happens to a man like Tobin after that? He lives quietly. I mean, as quietly as a guy like that can. He raised a family, ranched some land, and rarely talked about what he'd done. Unlike some of his peers, he didn't court fame. He didn't write memoirs. He just faded into the hills. He died in 1904, somewhere around 81 years old, which, for a frontier scout, might as well be 200. His legacy? Well, if you ask me, Tobin was one of those linchpin figures of the Wild West. Not loud, not flashy, but absolutely essential. A ghost between 2 centuries. That brings us to one of my favorite parts of our podcast. The Pine Grove Briar mailbag. This comes from Denise in North Dakota. She writes, was Tom Tobin really friends with Kit Carson, or was that just folklore? Yep, that's real. They served together, worked together, and even had some overlap in scouting circles. Tobin was like the quieter shadow of Kit Carson. The next one comes from Billy in Albuquerque. Why didn't Tobin become more famous, like Wild Bill or White Earp? That's a good question, Billy. He didn't really want fame. He didn't run a saloon or get into newspaper duels. He did the work, took the bounty, and went home. It's not as glamorous, but it's a lot more grounded. The next one comes from Rachel in Seattle. Do we know what happened to the heads? Wow, Rachel. I like your curiosity. A little morbid and dark, but I like your curiosity. The heads were supposedly displayed briefly, then they were buried or disposed of. The records are kind of murky on that, but the story sure stuck around. And that does it for the Pine Grove Briar mailbag for this episode. But before we ride off, I want to give a huge thank you to Roger D. from Winfield, Tennessee. Roger helped us with a much-needed equipment upgrade that's keeping this show sounding clean and crisp. You're a legend in your own right, my friend. And if you want to help support this show, you can do so via PayPal. Write into the pinegrovebriar@gmail.com. And again, that's pinegrovebriar@gmail.com. I can let you know how you can be a support and a help to the Pine Grove Briar. Every little bit helps keep our pipes lit and our stories going. That's going to do it for this episode of the Pine Grove Briar. We've been riding the trails with Tom Tobin, scout, soldier, and shadow of the frontier. Until next time, keep your pipe lit, your powder dry, and your stories true.